The morning I opened that USB drive, I heard my daughter's voice plotting how to leave me stranded overseas and steal my home. My hands trembled, but only for a second. By noon, I had the evidence sealed in the court on speed dial, and that's where my real story begins. The morning light poured through the lace curtains, soft and golden, touching everything it met: the tea kettle, the neat stack of mail, the framed wedding photo of Ephraim and me. I folded my Sunday dress, slid it beside my worn leather shoes, and tucked a small picture of him into the side pocket of my suitcase. One thing at a time. Eudora, I whispered, the way older folks remind themselves to keep their rhythm steady. The radio hummed the Savannah weather, mild breeze, 78 degrees, while I moved from kitchen to hallway, checking every light switch and door latch. The magnolia outside leaned its shadow across the porch, a reminder that roots and routines keep you steady. The front door swung open, and there she was, Isolde Crane, my daughter, all sunglasses and iced coffee, tapping her phone like she was juggling 100 lives. "Hey, Mama," she sang, sliding a stack of papers onto the kitchen table. "Got your itinerary, boarding pass, everything color-coded." She talked fast, too fast. "You know, TSA doesn't play. Mama, no full-size lotion this time." I smiled, easy and warm. "Baby, I was TSA before TSA was born." She laughed, and for a flicker, I saw the little girl who used to dance barefoot on this porch. She sat across from me, stirring her drink. "Just sign these, Mom, travel insurance, airline stuff, all routine." I lifted the papers, neat, official, too official. A header caught my eye. Authorization and property contingency. My pen hovered. "Honey, let me read what I'm signing. My eyes still work." She giggled. Playful but sharp. "Just lawyer talk. Mom, you worry too much." I noticed her thumb slide a pink Post-it over the header like a magician's trick. "You're the one who taught me to read the fine print," I said softly. "Well," she countered, "that's why you have me now." She chattered about gates and security as she tapped her Apple Watch. I nodded, pretending calm. But I'd sat in enough church meetings about elder scams to know a pen can betray you faster than a knife. I took a photo of the first page with my phone. She laughed. "You and that paper trail. Mama." I smiled. Paper trail means respect. By the time we reached the car, Isolde had taken control of every detail. She booked the rideshare, held my passport, even rolled my suitcase ahead of me like she owned the ground beneath it. "I'll keep the passport safe," she said, clipping it inside her crossbody. I let her, for the moment. "Baby, I don't need looking after," I murmured. "I need looking at—" She smirked. "We're a team. Mom." "A team's gotta share the ball," I replied, but she was already waving to the driver. At the airport, the air buzzed with voices and wheels. She hurried me through check-in, smiling too wide at strangers. I asked for my ID once. "After security," she said. "It's just easier." Easier, I thought, is where independence goes to die. While she printed bag tags, I left a quick voicemail for Marshall Quaid. "Heading out. If the mail comes, tuck it under the mat." Standing by the window. I thought of why I'd agreed to this trip, my first spring without Ephraim. Grief turns into chores. One less plate, one quiet pew. Isolde said we'd travel. Just us. I wanted to believe her heart had softened. When she promised to visit the art museum I loved, not her Instagram ones, I believed maybe she remembered who I was. My pastor once told me, "Trust, but notarize." I laughed at the time. Now it didn't sound like a joke. "At the gate?" I asked, calm as prayer. "Hand me my passport and ID." She blinked, impatient. "Boarding soon. Let's not juggle—" I held her gaze. "My name's on that page. It belongs in my hand." Her smile froze. "Mom, don't be dramatic." She hugged me too tight, performing daughterly love for onlookers. I stood still. She pulled away. I opened my phone and typed 11:08 a.m. Request for passport denied. I've always believed if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, I'll write duck in ink. Then the gate agent called my name for ID verification. I turned to Isolde. "Honey, She fumbled in her bag too long. "Let me grab coffee first. Be right back." She vanished into the crowd. The PA chimed again. Her seat sat empty. I looked at that space and thought, that was the last moment I believed helpful meant harmless. The intercom called my name again, polite but firm, while I stood at the counter with empty hands and a straight back. Isolde reappeared, smiling too wide, holding 2 cups of coffee. "System glitch." "Mom," she said brightly, passing my passport just long enough for the agent to scan it. The woman behind the desk asked for my birth date, and when I answered, I looked at my daughter. "Now, please put that back in my purse." She grinned for the onlookers. "Of course," she whispered, sliding it right back into her bag instead. I could feel the small tremor of warning inside me. Ease, I thought, is where power hides. I noted the time in my phone. We took our seats by the window. She scrolled her phone while I pretended to do a crossword, watching her fingers manage what was mine. On the plane, she swapped our seats. "Airline messed up, so we can sit together," she said, and I let her. Though my patience was thin, the flight attendant asked for passports again, and Isolde answered before I could open my mouth. I ordered ginger ale. She interrupted. "Sparkling water, no ice." A stranger might think it was care. I knew better. I folded the blanket neatly over my knees. Eudora's corners, Ephraim used to call them. She leaned close and whispered, "We're a team, Mom." I nodded, but agreement never left my lips. My hand slid under the armrest, phone in my palm. I typed a short note. "Trip log, day 1. Custody of ID contested. By the time we reached Lisbon, dusk hung low over tiled streets. At check-in." Isolde smiled at the clerk. "Both keys under my name. Please." I placed my card first. "Make one under mine." Her eyes flickered annoyance. "You worry too much." "Mom," I said softly, "I call it record keeping." In the elevator, she added, "I'll lock your passport in the safe." "After I copy it," I replied. I photographed every page, passport, insurance card, itinerary, and emailed them to myself and to Marshall. "Always the archivist," she teased. "Habit keeps you alive," I murmured. Later that evening, my phone buzzed. A fraud alert blinked red. Attempted transfer. $40,000. I called the bank. Voice calm. Heart steady. The agent said, "DocuSign authorization, last week, secondary approval today." My chest went cold. "Read the document name." I said, "Authorization and property contingency addendum?" Isolde froze. "Mom, that's travel insurance," she said too quickly. "We must have mixed them." I requested a freeze on all outbound transfers and paper statements mailed to my home. The agent confirmed. I saved the case number. Eyes on my daughter, who was already rehearsing another story. I opened my inbox and found the document. Signed, time-stamped, forged. The signature looked like mine. I took screenshots, every page, every IP trace. I forwarded it to Marshall and blind copied my church's admin email. "For safekeeping," I wrote. "Behind me," Isolde said softly. "You're overthinking this." I turned. "No, honey, I'm just catching up." "Sitting on the bed," I said evenly. "My passport and ID. Now." She laughed without humor. "You don't trust me. Dad would have let me handle this." "Your father trusted facts," I said. She threw the passport on the bed. "Fine, but I'll hold the cards till morning." "At breakfast," I said. "They come back to me." My voice was steady, steel wrapped in calm, when she slept. I went downstairs and printed everything, the audit trail, the bank summary, my own notes. I sealed them in an envelope with my name and date, back in the room. I slipped a passport copy into my shoe. "If it's in your name," I whispered, "it rides in your bag." Sometime near dawn, I heard it. The faint rasp of a zipper, slow and deliberate. I stayed still. The soft clink of metal. Her whisper? Transfer. I kept breathing. One hand on my phone, one on my shoe. Tomorrow, I thought. I'll stop pretending not to know. I woke before my alarm. Morning light spilled across the tile floor, warm and deceptive, the kind that makes you think the day might go smooth. Isolde was already dressed, hair perfect, suitcase zipped. Let's grab coffee before security. she said, too bright, too soon. I asked for my wallet and cards back. She smiled like she was offering grace. After coffee, Mom, cash lines faster. I slipped a few bills into the pocket of my bra and the passport copy into my shoe. Redundancy isn't paranoia, I told myself. As we walked down the hallway, she chirped, "Let's check in together. Save time." I counted her words the way you count steps when you're pacing a cage. Busy lobbies hide quiet thefts. I reminded the audience in my head, at the self-service kiosk. She stood between me and the screen. "I'll type." "You confirm," she said. Fingers already moving. A notice blinked. "Standby eligible. Earlier flight to Newark." "Free upgrade," she said quickly. I read the small print. "Separate reservations may separate parties." I said it aloud. She laughed it off, a sound that didn't reach her eyes. "It's just an option, Mom." She reached for my card. Taxes, €8. But I paid cash instead and photographed the display. "Old habits die hard," I said. She folded both boarding passes and slid them toward her purse. I lifted my hand. "Open, mine," I said simply. She hesitated, then placed them in my palm. Paper in your hand beats promise in someone else's pocket. At the cafe. She bumped my tote. The latte hit the zipper but left the fabric untouched, a messy act done neatly. "Oops," she said, all fluttering hands and napkins. "Let me check inside. Make sure it's dry." "I'll do that," I said, setting the tote under my foot. She chuckled. "You guard things like Fort Knox. I've lived through decades that taught me to," I answered. When she handed the bag back, the zipper was closed, too neatly. I noted the change in weight. We moved toward security, her 3 steps ahead, checking her phone screen angled away from my view. A PA announcement echoed, "Temporary gate change." Crowds shifted like a tide. "Grab water," she said. "I'll find seats near the new gate." "We go together," I replied. "Mom, it's water, not a war," she said with that soft cruelty people use when they want to shame you for noticing. I bought the bottles anyway, watching her silhouette. I texted myself, 11:07 a.m. Separation attempt, #1. When I came back, she patted the seat beside her. "Let me see your passport. Quick verification," I said calmly. "We walk together, or not at all." She shrugged, pretending indifference. "Then go use the restroom before we board." I smiled. Not thirsty, not pressed, and not moving. Then the loudspeaker called, "Standby passengers for Newark. Final boarding. Our flight wasn't Newark." She pressed a €10 bill into my hand. "Water and gum. Mom, I'll hold our seats." I didn't move fast enough. She was already walking toward the line, waving at me like a worried daughter humoring her anxious mother. When I returned with water, strangers filled our chairs, her scarf gone, her seat empty. The gate screen updated, standby cleared, passenger Y, Crane. I opened my tote. Passport, gone, wallet, gone, phone, still there. Cash, still mine. I breathed once. Steady. I walked to the counter. "My daughter just boarded standby using my identification," I said evenly. The agent frowned. "She rerouted herself only. Your booking's still valid this afternoon. I asked for security and police." I showed them the photocopy of my passport, the DocuSign printout, the bank case number, every timestamp I'd logged. No drama, I told myself. Just documentation. Outside the terminal, diesel air burned my throat. I handed a cab driver the consulate address I'd saved last night. Inside the embassy line, a clerk said, "Emergency passports take 3 business days." I counted my money, my patience, and the truth. I wasn't helpless. I whispered, "If she thinks boarding early means winning, she doesn't know me at all." Then the receptionist leaned closer. "Ma'am," she said softly, "someone named Gideon Rusk just called ahead for you. The use." Consulate smelled faintly of toner and rain-soaked coats. I handed the receptionist my folder. Photocopies, kiosk pictures, timestamps scrawled in pen. She blinked. "Mrs. Latham, Mr. Gideon Rusk called ahead for you." That name steadied me like a hand on the shoulder. "Then let's make this official," I said. I dictated the statement. Abandonment and theft by a relative at Lisbon Airport. I requested preservation letters for CCTV. Kiosk. Cafe. Gate. The officer nodded, typing steadily. Emergency passport, 3 business days. We can offer a welfare loan if you'd like. No debt, thank you. I replied. Just the forms, and I asked for identity theft advisories, a notary, and contacts for Seattle PD. Paper beats panic. I told the young man printing my file, a calm pen is a weapon. He smiled. We'll make sure your name stays yours. An hour later, my phone buzzed. Gideon Rusk, direct and measured. Lock title, lock accounts, lock narrative. His voice had that courtroom precision that leaves no air for doubt. He emailed a county recorder alert, a title freeze request, and a script from my banks. Repeat it back, he said. I did. Word for word. Good. Don't confront her by phone. Let paper do that. I could almost hear him smile. We need her to call first, on record, I agreed. You'll file in King County? Already done, he said. And we've flagged the credit bureaus. Senior Fraud Watch active. I wrote each task in my notebook. No adjectives, no feelings, just facts. When we ended the call, I felt less like a victim, more like an archivist of my own survival. The consulate arranged 2 hostel nights. The room smelled of detergent and salt air. I chose the bunk near the door. Habit, not fear. I bought a small flip phone, photographed every receipt, labeled each note in a spiral pad. Date, time, action. My dinner was simple. Bread, cheese, and an apple. Old school fuels, I murmured, before sleep. I tucked copies of my documents in 3 spots. Passport in the bra pocket, case number under my sock. Cash pinned inside the pillowcase. Redundancy is dignity in disguise. I texted Marshal Quaid, all secure. Porch light stays on. His reply, always. I fell asleep in my shoes. Morning brought movement. I returned to the airport to file CCTV hold requests with timestamps down to the minute. The clerk stamped each sheet twice, once in black ink, once in red. I asked for a standby manifest showing Crane rerouted. She handed me a copy with half the data blacked out. It'll do, I said. I recorded a voice memo listing each document and sequence. No emotion, no commentary. Just the evidence trail. I emailed the whole packet to Gideon. CC'd the consulate and Seattle PD. If you didn't write it, I whispered, it didn't happen. The clerk handed me a flight itinerary to Newark with a same-day Seattle connection. I'd be home before she landed. By noon, the paper had begun to move faster than she ever could. Gideon's assistant arranged a locksmith in Seattle. Title company confirmed. Transfer freeze placed. I printed the confirmation and wrote the time in the margin. 2:47 p.m. Bank security installed a watch code. Any change in beneficiaries would trigger a live verification to Gideon and Marshall. No code, no change, I said aloud, almost smiling. I forwarded every one of Isolde's credit repair emails to Gideon. They'd serve as breadcrumbs for motive. My last Lisbon act was simple. Buy a prepaid SIM card for backup. Redundant, reliable. At the gate, I felt it, a prickle at the back of my neck. I didn't turn. I photographed the boarding door, the clock, the ticket. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Mom, please stop. You're tired. Let me handle the house paperwork. I took a screenshot, saved it, and forwarded it to Gideon. I switched on airplane mode, then off again. The jetway hummed beneath my shoes. She thinks speed is power, I whispered. Paper is. As the door sealed, another text slipped through. It's already in my name. The consulate guard checked my bag, waved me through metal detectors, and directed me to a window labeled Emergency Services. I handed over my packet, photocopies, receipts, a handwritten timeline in blue ink. The clerk looked up. Mrs. Latham, we were expecting you. Mr. Gideon Rusk called ahead, I exhaled. Then he saved us both some time. I described the theft, passport, wallet, phone. I stated it plainly. Abandonment and attempted property fraud. The officer listened without pity. Just process. Emergency passport, 3 business days. Fee can be deferred. I nodded. Good, I'll pay when I'm standing on my own porch again. I requested CCTV holds for 3 locations, a notarized statement, and Seattle PD contact info. When I signed the last form, I said softly, "Put it in ink. Fear fades. Paper doesn't." The call from Gideon came before I left the building. "Eudora, lock the title, lock the cash, lock the narrative." He didn't waste words. My email pinged with attachments before I even found a chair. County recorder fraud alert, title freeze letter, bank code script. "Repeat the phrase exactly," he said. "No change without live voice verification from you or me." I repeated it line for line. "Perfect. Do not call your daughter. Let her contact you first. On record, silence gathers rope." I wrote that in my notebook too. He promised to contact the county office, flag credit bureaus, and schedule a check-in once I landed. Before hanging up, he said, "You don't chase thieves, you close exits." I smiled. "Then let's bolt the doors." The consulate's aide helped me assemble a sworn packet. Photos, timestamps, voice memo, signed declaration. I kept my tone calm as the notary stamped the corner of each page. I bought a flash drive, backed up the files, and labeled it Lisbon Evidence. I sent copies to Gideon, Marshal Quaid, and the consulate's main desk. I divided my copies into 3 envelopes, one for my jacket, one for my tote, one taped inside the hostel locker. "Redundancy is respect," I murmured. I bought a flip phone and programmed only 3 numbers, Gideon, Marshall, and the consulate. The hostel was a creaky building in Alfama with the scent of detergent and sea air. I took the bunk nearest the door, checked the lock twice. Dinner was bread, olives, and tuna eaten from the can. I photographed every receipt and logged it in a spiral notebook. Date, time, reason, routine steadied my breathing. I called Marshall before bed. "Porch light's still on," he said. "Nobody's been near the house." I told him not to open mail from unfamiliar senders. "You're 3 steps ahead," he replied. "You taught me to be." I smiled in the dark and looped my tote strap around my wrist. The next morning, I returned to the airport, filed written CCTV hold requests with timestamps, and collected stamped receipts. The clerk provided a redacted standby manifest showing a female passenger rerouted to Newark under I. Crane. Proof enough. I bought a new ticket, Lisbon to Newark to Seattle, landing 8 hours ahead of her route. Gideon's paralegal confirmed the locksmith for tomorrow noon. A second email arrived from the title office. "Fraud alert active. Any deed transfer will notify you instantly." The bank's message followed. "Watch code applied. Live voice verification required." I leaned back in the hard plastic chair, heart steady for the first time in days. At the gate that night, the air felt charged. I snapped a photo of the departure board and the clock. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Mom, you're tired. Let me handle the house paperwork." I took a screenshot, forwarded it to Gideon. She reached first. The jetway opened, engines humming below. A second text appeared just before airplane mode sealed the signal. "It's already in my name." I stared at the words until the screen dimmed, then whispered, "Speed is a bluff. Records are a verdict." The flight touched down through a curtain of low Seattle fog. I kept my phone on airplane mode until we taxied to the gate, then switched to the flip phone. Simple. Secure. "Wheels down," I texted Gideon, along with my gate number and ETA. The locksmith was due at noon. Our passphrase was blue hydrangea. I stayed off airport Wi-Fi, ducked into the restroom, and recorded a voice memo. Time, gate, baggage carousel, rideshare pickup, habit now. Marshall answered on the first ring. "That silver SUV was back last night," he said. "Didn't stop, just circled." I told him to keep the porch camera rolling. My ride dropped me a block from home. I carried my tote crossbody, scanning driveways and porches as if I were walking through my own evidence folder. The neighborhood smelled of cedar mulch and cold rain. My bungalow looked untouched, except for the doormat. I'd left it squared with the porch rail. Now it leaned 2 inches off. Someone had been there. I photographed the porch, the lock face, the scuff on the deadbolt plate. The locksmith van arrived right on time. I verified the plate number Gideon had texted, Itawat, and asked the driver for the phrase, "blue hydrangea," he said with a grin. "Good answer," I told him. As he unpacked his tools, I circled the yard. The side gate latch was flipped inward, wrong direction. Someone had tested it from the outside. I whispered into my phone's recorder. A tidy crime still sheds crumbs. When the cylinder came loose, a familiar voice sliced through the drizzle. "You can't change those," Isolde said, clutching a manila folder. "I'm the owner." I stepped aside so the doorbell camera could frame both of us. "Say that again, please," I told her. She smiled, wide and rehearsed. "I'm the owner," she repeated, tapping the folder like a gavel. I opened my phone app and played last night's clip, her voice whispering at the door. "Try your card." The locksmith's eyebrows shot up. Marshall, on speaker, said, "Got it. Recording saved." I looked at her squarely. "This property is under a title fraud alert. Entering without consent is trespass." She crossed her arms. "Paperwork's done," I said. "Then you won't mind if I read it." She thrust the folder forward. A power of attorney, printed crooked, seal smudged. "That's your signature," she insisted. I unfolded it carefully. "This seal's off-center, and this date overlaps my Lisbon stamp." I called Gideon, put him on speaker. Within a minute, he looped in the title officer and my bank's fraud desk. The title officer's tone was dry. "No recorded deed." And the bank rep chimed in. "No power of attorney accepted without Mrs. Latham's voice code." I said the code clearly. "Authenticated." He confirmed. Gideon's voice cut through. "Client was out of the country when that was assigned." I held up my emergency passport beside the forged date. Isolde's color drained. I photographed every page, zooming on the expired notary commission number. She hissed, "You'll regret this." The locksmith didn't pause. "New keys in 30? I smiled. "Make the garage match." A police cruiser arrived moments later, called by a disturbance. The senior officer listened, calm and factual. I handed him the consulate report and notarized declaration, played the doorbell clip, and outlined the fraud attempt. He nodded. "Until a court says otherwise, title remains with Miss Latham." I requested a trespass warning. He issued it on the spot. Case number linked to the footage. Isolde muttered, "Lawyer up," as she backed toward her car. I handed Marshall a spare key and logged its serial number in my notebook. The officers left. The locksmith finished tightening the final screw. Inside, I took inventory. Every drawer, every seal intact. I taped notices on the door and file cabinet. No agent, no POA accepted. Gideon emailed a draft injunction. I added the notary number, signed, and sent it back. The house felt smaller but sharper, like a held breath. I brewed coffee, arranged my papers in rows, each one a small victory. I looked into the doorbell lens and said quietly, "You don't shout a house into safety, you document it." As the sun dropped, the doorbell chimed again. No one stood outside. A thick envelope lay on the mat, the return address of my late husband's probate attorney. I slipped on gloves and picked it up, my voice barely above a whisper. "If this is what I think it is, tomorrow won't be about locks. It'll be about a will." Morning light slanted through my kitchen blinds when I slit open the thick probate envelope. I used gloves, not from fear, just discipline. Inside lay my husband's original will and a codicil I'd never seen, dated 2 years before his death. The codicil named me life tenant of the bungalow and added a scholarship clause to our church if family conduct becomes hostile. My breath caught. He'd known this storm might come. I called Gideon on speaker. He ran the notary commission number. "Active, valid, Seattle," he said, unlike her forgery. We photographed each page, logged timestamps, exported a read-only PDF. Marshall printed color copies, labeled Exhibits A through D, doorbell video, Lisbon report, forged POA, bank denial log. "We'll make them read it," I said, "every single page." By 9, we were downtown, binder in hand. Gideon filed for an emergency injunction. The clerk moved fast, slotting us into the afternoon docket. In the hallway, Isolde appeared with a lawyer who looked barely 30. "You're wasting your breath. Mother?" she hissed. I kept my voice level. "I brought receipts." Gideon handed her counsel a neat binder, color tabs, QR links to footage. As they flipped through, I called the fraud desk. "Yes," the agent confirmed. Another POA attempt came in this morning, 7:06 about M. I asked for a time-stamped affidavit, done within minutes. I texted Marshall. Pull night composite, 11:42 p.m. Lock jiggle. He replied, uploading. I stood by the courtroom doors, palms flat on the binder. State facts, I whispered. Let the paper cut. The judge's chamber smelled of coffee and lemon disinfectant. Gideon opened with the codicil. Dated after the will. Notarized. Commission active, he said. Opposing counsel tried to call it stale. Gideon countered. Valid and controlling, I added. My husband wrote that scholarship clause to curb coercion. The judge leaned forward. Has there been coercion? Gideon gestured to the exhibits. I spoke simply. My daughter abandoned me abroad, forged my authority, and tried to seize my home. The judge's pen paused midair. Miss Latham remains in lawful possession, she said. Any interference is hereby restrained. She signed the temporary restraining order herself. I didn't cheer, I just exhaled, for the first time in weeks. Next came the playback. The bailiff dimmed lights. Our doorbell video filled the screen, Isolde whispering, Try your card. While the lock scraped, her lawyer's jaw tightened. Gideon handed up the Lisbon report, the photo of my consulate badge, time-stamped airport memo. Proof client was abandoned overseas. He said, I looked at the judge and said, she told me she'd take care of the house. She meant it literally. Opposing counsel objected. The judge waved it off. Pattern of conduct, she said. When the clip froze on Isolde's face, no one spoke. The judge wrote something, then looked up. Violation of this order will mean contempt and immediate custody, Isolde muttered. It's all a setup. But her hands trembled. The courtroom monitor flickered again, this time a video linked to the bank's compliance officer. We logged a new POA attempt at 7:06 a.m., she said. Same device. Denied for lack of passphrase. I raised my flip phone. No call came to me. The officer nodded. That proves no consent. The judge added language to the injunction. No representation as my agent under any name. Gideon requested expedited discovery for metadata and IP logs. Granted, the judge replied. I met Isolde's eyes. She looked away. I'm not your target anymore. I told her. In the hallway, she spat. You'll die alone in that house. I smiled faintly. Not before I changed the locks on my heart. Gideon offered her counsel a settlement path, therapy, restitution, supervised contact. Marshall texted a new still from the airport feed, her walking away while I argued with an agent, timestamp matching the boarding denial. I forwarded it to Gideon. Exhibit EO, he said. Outside, sirens wailed down 2nd Avenue, but the world felt quiet again, contained. Finally, that evening, I brought a sealed envelope to Pastor Mavis at church, the scholarship clause, I said. She prayed 3 words over it. Let truth stand. I left the papers in the church vault. No copies. Later, back home. I brewed tea and lined my documents on the table like medals. Documentation isn't drama, I told the camera. It's dignity. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. A woman whispered. Miss Latham, your daughter paid me cash to notarize that POA. She told me to backdate. I steadied my voice. Would you testify under oath? A pause. Then, yes. The house felt alive again that morning, like it had exhaled after holding its breath for weeks. I walked each room, tested the locks, touched the old walnut banister. It felt warm beneath my hand, as if the wood remembered calm voices and steady faith. On the fridge, my copy of the restraining order hung beneath a small magnet shaped like an angel. The fire safe hummed when I turned the dial. 3 flash drives inside, labeled, logged, complete. Marshall's text blinked across the screen. Civil unit ready, waiting for your word. I sent a single thumbs up and brewed coffee strong enough to stand a spoon. My tote sat ready. Binder, glasses, spiral notebook marked consequence log. I told myself the same thing I'd told juries years ago when I volunteered at civic court. Facts first, feelings later. At 8, the unknown number from last night texted again. This is the notary. I want to make it right. Her name was Dawn. She was afraid her boss would find out she'd backdated a document for cash. I offered to meet at the church, neutral ground with witnesses and a copier. She agreed to 11. Gideon looped in Pastor Mavis, drafted a statement template, and sent it to my printer before sunrise. The form was simple: names, date, cash payment, instruction to backdate, and confirmation that I was not present. I sipped my coffee, wrote on the top of my spiral, "Truth is my security system," and left the pen open beside it. By 11, we sat in the church office. Dawn's voice shook, but her memory was sharp. She told me she needed the form dated 2 days earlier. She said, "She slid me 100 in 20s, I asked gently. "And you wrote her name in the journal?" She nodded, sliding her phone across the table. Text showed her asking her supervisor, "If a client wants an earlier date, is that okay?" And him replying, "Use your judgment." Pastor Mavis handed her a tissue without a word. Gideon stayed on speaker, recording her answers. We attached the journal photocopy, the text exchange, and a short summary. The deacon notarized the affidavit correctly this time, and the upload hit Gideon's vault seconds later. I thanked Dawn quietly. "You helped repair what you didn't break alone," she whispered. "I'm sorry I helped tear it." Marshall met us outside the church and took custody of the affidavit. Within an hour, 2 deputies served the revised restraining order at Isolde's condo. Body cams on. Report clean. She tried a speech about elder confusion, but the deputy just read, "No contact, no entry, no agency." The condo manager later emailed photos of her late-night visitors. All archived. Gideon filed for sanctions before lunch. My cousin in Tacoma texted 3 prayer emojis, and "That's the spirit, cousin." By afternoon, the fallout began. The bank emailed an apology and an education flyer titled, "Know Your Rights, Elder Financial Safety." Pastor Mavis suggested a workshop. I agreed to open with 5 minutes of facts. The HOA board sent a neighborhood bulletin on lock tampering. That night, a casserole appeared on my porch with a note. "We see you. Nora, Unit 3. A friend texted screenshots from an anonymous forum claiming I'd confused paperwork. Within minutes, the moderator pulled it down. Citing the court order, Gideon warned opposing counsel, one more public misstatement and sanctions would double. I wrote one line for my online seniors group. "When they question your sanity, show them your receipts." My pulse steadied. Anger turned to purpose. Closure, not cruelty. The next morning, I visited the credit union with a young clerk named Liam. We reset accounts, voice print security, and added Gideon as alert contact. "You're locked tight now," Liam said. I smiled. Finally, breathing room. That evening, the sanctions order arrived. The judge demanded journals and hinted at disciplinary review. Gideon's counteroffer stood firm. Written admission, restitution, therapy. Even the notary's boss called to cooperate. Isolde's name went on the regional fraud alert. The internet that once boosted her now refused to tag her. At sunset, I spoke to a packed church basement. "You can rebuild from anything, Gus," I said. "But you have to write it down first." Neighbors nodded. Some cried. A woman told me her son had taken her car title once. "Not anymore," she said, and gripping my hand. As I left, the sky turned that pewter gray that only Seattle gets before rain. When I reached my porch, another envelope waited. Plain. No return address. Inside was a USB drive and a sticky note in block letters. You should see what she planned next. I called Gideon, set it on my desk, and said, "Chain of custody starts now. Are you ready to open this with me?" The morning light slipped through the blinds like it knew how to keep secrets. I sat at my kitchen table with the USB drive between my palms, its small weight heavy as a courtroom oath. "All right," I said into my phone. "This is Eudora Latham. Timestamped 9/11 at 1 a.m. Witnesses, Gideon Rusk and Pastor Mavis on call. We logged everything. Chain of custody, serial number, even the coffee stain on the paper under it. Gideon connected the right blocker, and the folder tree opened on his monitor. Itinerary, notary, house, voice notes, Marshall Quaid texted standing by. I took a slow sip of coffee and whispered, "Facts first, feelings later." The first file was a photo of a calendar marked "Mom dropped SeaTac." My breath caught. Notes scrawled beside it read, "Passport in my bag," and "No return." Then came a voice memo, Isolde's voice, clear, calculating, saying, "Once she's gone, I'll have the notary backdate the form and move the house quick." Her laugh in the background sounded like someone else's daughter. Not mine. Another folder held an image of the notary journal, the same line Dawn had confessed to. A deed template followed, my name typed neatly, signature line, blank. Metadata showed it created 2 days before the airport. Gideon muted the audio, wrote premeditation established across his pad. I said it out loud. Steady. This is intent. By noon, we were at his office assembling exhibits, screenshots, transcripts, the affidavit from Dawn. Gideon filed a referral to the State Attorney General's Elder Justice Unit, adding the USB hash and bank logs. They'll move fast, he said. Marshall arranged the forensic clone, handing the drive to a deputy with sealed evidence tape. My pen scratched a new line into my consequence log. USB sealed, witness chain intact. I felt no triumph, only the clean ache that comes when truth finally stands up. At the courthouse, opposing counsel looked hollowed out. He offered a mutual walk-away. Gideon didn't blink. Admission, restitution, and permanent no contact, he said. I leaned forward. My boundaries are not for barter. Gideon played 20 seconds of the voice memo. You could have heard a pin drop. Counsel asked to recess. When they came back, their apology was thin as tissue. We declined. The judge took the bench, robe crisp, eyes tired but firm. She reviewed every file, USB, affidavit, bank logs, and called it what it was, premeditated, coercive, and deliberate. She granted the permanent protection order, restitution, and attorney's fees. The gavel hit like a door, closing gently but completely. Back at Gideon's office, I signed the papers transferring my bungalow into an irrevocable trust, benefiting the church pantry and local scholarships, barring Isolde Crane forever. This protects you and your purpose, Gideon said. It protects her from herself. I answered. I replaced the last interior lock when I got home and dropped the old key into a jar labeled, "For the toolkit," on the mantel. I placed a brass tag, Eudora's house, kept in trust by her own 2 hands. I wrote a single-page letter to Isolde. It wasn't forgiveness, it was release. I will not carry your choices, it read. When truth stood up, I learned I could too. I mailed it certified, logged the number, and closed my spiral for good. That evening, Pastor Mavis called. "Proud of your clean ending," she said. "Me too," I replied, watching sunlight turn the porch rails gold. Later, I recorded a short message for my seniors group. Write everything down. Paper remembers what hearts forget. Then I brewed tea, sat by the window, and let the house breathe. Just before sunset, my phone buzzed. Marshall again. "We found a storage unit tied to her name," he said. "You may want to see what else was filed as yours." I stood, slipped my tote over my shoulder, and smiled faintly. Boundaries don't mean hiding. They mean I choose when to walk toward the truth. The USB's truth had already changed everything, but when Marshall mentioned that storage unit, my pulse quickened. What else had she hidden under my name? Another forged deed? Something worse? As the rain started outside, I reached for my coat. Some storms don't end, they just move to a new address.